Estamos en vivo.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome you all to Texas. Bienvenidos. Gracias por conectarse. Thank you so much for joining our very own T-MEC, or USMCA presentation for the Texas region by Doctora Luz María de la Mora, Undersecretary or Vice Minister of International Trade at the Economy Ministry. I would like to thank the Mexican Embassy in Washington, Ambassador Marta Bárcena's team, and the Office of Secretaría de Economía, con su representante Gerardo Alameda, quien nos hace el favor de acompañarnos esta mañana. Thank you all for making this possible. Thank you so much, Subsecretaria and her team, for choosing Dallas and the North Texas region to make this presentation. 50 companies of the 500 Fortune are headquartered in Texas, and 35% of all the Mexican investments in the United States are headquartered in the Dallas-Fort Worth region. The top trading partner of Texas is Mexico, and the number one trading partner for Mexico is Texas. $200 billion in trade last year are the proof of a deep and mutual beneficial relationship. Texas exports to Mexico represent 35% of the state's total goods export. That is the size and the importance of Mexico in Texas. A very brief disclosure. I have known Subsecretaria de la Mora for at least 20 years. I had the privilege of knowing her work closely as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so I am very proud that she's in charge of international trade for my country. She's a top expert and a friend. Bienvenida virtualmente, Subsecretaria. Nos da gusto tenerte aquí en Dallas y en Texas. Gracias por la confianza. This would not be complete without our valued partners. Virtually here with me in Dallas is Luisa del Rosal, Executive Director of the Mission Foods Texas-Mexico Center at the Southern Methodist University, SMU para los amigos en inglés. The only not only think tank, that studies the relation between a state, Texas, and a country, Mexico, in all the universities across the U.S. Thank you, Luisa. I am sure that this presentation will enlighten our audience across Texas on a regional perspective about the USMCA. We look forward to learn more about the difference between the former NAFTA and the new USMCA. After the presentation, hopefully we'll have time for questions that you're sending or posting accordingly. So, Luisa, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Consul General. It really is such a pleasure to be here representing the Mission Foods Texas-Mexico Center. Undersecretary, thank you for opening this dialogue and opportunity for questions. I think it's just a great opportunity to show and highlight the deep relationship between U.S. and Mexico. But at the Texas-Mexico Center, we're an academic research center. We believe that the core of that relationship is Texas. So it's great to have you here virtually. We hope to have you visit us and have the academic floor open for you as we continue this partnership. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank a great friend and a wonderful partner, which is Consul General de la Torre, because he really understands how important academia is and the research we do in furthering dialogue and this intertwining important relationship. So Paco, Francisco, thank you so much for your leadership. It means the world to us. So I get the honor of introducing and reading a little bit more about our illustrious guest, because for those joining us live, it is really a pleasure to have somebody with such deep experience in the Texas-Mexico relationship and the U.S.-Mexico relationship as the Undersecretary. So if I may, if you all give me the chance, I'm going to read you a really impressive bio. So give me 1 second. As of December 1st of 2018, Luz María de la Mora, she was appointed Undersecretary of Foreign Trade in the Ministry of Economy in Mexico. She has been the head of the Unit of Economic Relations and International Cooperation in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and head of International Trade Negotiations Unit in the Ministry of Economy, as well as head of representations of the same secretariat before the European Union in Brussels and before Aladi in Montevideo. Served as economic counselor at the Embassy of Mexico in Washington, D.C., and was part of the negotiating team of NAFTA. So again, such a breadth of experience. Thank you. This is exciting. She has been a panelist for Chapter 19 of NAFTA and a consultant for the Advisory Committee of the Latin American Division of the World Bank. In the academic field, she has been a visiting researcher at the Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and at the Mexico-U.S. Study Center at the University of California at San Diego. She has been an affiliate professor in the International Studies Division of CIDE and is the author of the book Apertura con Reciprocidad. Sorry, I couldn't even say that. In 2012. She has been a member of the Mexican Council of International Affairs, COMEXI. She has led the We Connect international program in Mexico and the Mexico chapter of Vital Voices Global Partnership, promoting the development and internationalization of women businesses. She holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from the Colegio de México, a master's in the international political economy from Carleton University in Canada, and a doctorate in political science from Yale University in the US. She's been a Fulbright Scholar for the Government of Canada and CONACYT. So it is my sincere pleasure to really pass the floor to Undersecretary Luz Maria de la Mora.
Thank you very much, Luisa. Thanks for the kind introduction. It is a great pleasure to be here with you today. Muchas gracias, Francisco. Qué gusto entrar. As Francisco mentioned, our friendship goes way back, but we will not say how back because otherwise they will know how old we are, Francisco. So it's a very, very dear friendship that we have here. So it's a great privilege and a great honor for me to be able to have this conversation today with Dallas and with Texas. I also want to thank all of the work that a lot of people have put in making this possible. Evidently, the Embassy of Mexico, led by our great ambassador, Ambassador Bárcena, also Gerardo Lameda, who's the representative of the Ministry of Economy in Washington, D.C., and his group of people, and obviously my team in Mexico. So I think this is, without a question, it's a teamwork and it's a binational effort, what we're doing today. And I do appreciate the opportunity of being able to share with you some of the perspectives with respect to USMCA. So if you allow me, I will share my screen with you so I can make this presentation easier. I promise I will be brief but substantive. And at the end, if you want to, we may have some Q&A, so you can let us know what are your main concerns. I think that will also be important. So just please let me know if you can see the screen correctly and also if it's moving. I think it's, if you see the screen moving, okay, perfect. Okay, so, well, I would like to start by saying, first of all, saying where we are with respect to USMCA and also how USMCA is different from NAFTA. I think that one of the things that we need to remind or keep in mind is that we are not starting from scratch. We are starting from a very specific effort that was developed in the early 1990s. And I want to remind all of us here today and all of the people who are listening to us here in Dallas and in Texas today that Dallas was one of the key sites of the NAFTA negotiation in 1990, in the early 1990s. In February of 1991, we had a plenary session of the NAFTA negotiation. I remember being there. So it does ring a bell with respect to the fact that Dallas was a building block to the North American integration, and Texas, without a question, one of the key states in making NAFTA and today USMCA possible. So Dallas holds a very special place in the history of North American integration. And what we have today, USMCA, builds on what we had in NAFTA. In this graph, in this table that you see here, you see 24 chapters that are colored in red. These are the chapters that come from NAFTA and that were adjusted, modified, corrected in order to show the new realities of the 21st century and also to show the new provisions that have been negotiated since the early 1990s when we negotiated NAFTA. The boxes in green contain the provisions and the chapters that we included in the USMCA, and that, in my opinion, they really, what they do is to deepen the kind of integration that we have, moving from a liberalization in trade in goods and services, as well as investment flows, to areas that include environment, labor rights, anti-corruption measures, and the like, to really make Mexico, the US, and Canada more integrated in a number of policy areas that, in my opinion, will lead to a stronger, more integrated, more deeply integrated North American integration. I also think that one of the main goals that we were able to accomplish in this agreement was the fact that we maintain a clear set of rules that provide certainty to producers, exporters, investors, and all those who are involved in one way or another in North American integration. It also allows us to keep North America producing jointly. So I think that the movement from NAFTA to USMCA can be categorized as a deeper integration among three partners that intend to keep regional competitiveness, and this will be accomplished by complying with the provisions contained in with respect to market access, technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, investment, regulatory coherence, and temporary entry. We will see a deeper integration as a result of inclusive and responsible trade. And in that respect, we have decided that three countries that we want to abide by rules that protect labor, that encourage the best business environment by fighting corruption measures or corruption practices. And also, we want to include more SMEs into the success story of North America, as well as women-owned businesses, and to open more opportunities for minorities. So I think it's important to bear in mind that we are aware that the kind of integration that we have already accomplished after more than 26 years of NAFTA still can yield more benefits to more people and more regions throughout the whole region in North America. Will also be supported by the fact that we have dispute settlement mechanisms that are binding at the level of state-to-state disputes, at the level of investor-state disputes, and also regarding trade remedy laws. And this is not minor, given the fact that at the multilateral trading system today, we're seeing concerns regarding the actual enforcement of provisions as a result of the lack of operation of the appellate body in WTO. And last but not least, our deeper integration will also be evident in the development of the opportunities of the 21st century economy. Provisions regarding intellectual property, digital trade, e-commerce, the digital economy, financial services will help us to go beyond trade in goods and services as we thought of them in the 1990s, and it will allow us to really expand our integration towards this new area of the fourth industrial revolution and the digital economy. So I think it's important to bear in mind that in general, USMCA provides some new rules that hopefully, and that's the intent of all of this, will create a stronger North America where the three together are sharing production, and the three of us are more competitive as a result of our integration. And where I would like to just give you some information in respect to what did NAFTA accomplish and where do we want to move and where do we want to bring the relationship, the next steps. How do we see the vision? And I just want to, I cannot start this presentation without mentioning the fact that we already see a very important movement with the visit of President López Obrador to Washington, D.C. This July 8th, when President López Obrador met with President Trump to reaffirm Mexico's commitment towards the USMCA and the future of North American integration. I think that is also shows the kind of integration that the three countries have been able to create as a result of 26 and a half years of NAFTA, and how important it is for us to continue to work towards strengthening and making sure that this integration yields the benefits that we want. Today, we have a North American market that is composed by 493 million people. We represent 6.5% of world population, while as a region, we are the second largest economy. We represent 18.3% of world GDP. So I think that these two numbers tell you a lot about the nature of the integration that we have. In 2018, we were the first recipient of total foreign direct investment, reaching $323 billion. As a bloc, as one unit, we represented in 2019 the second global exporter, and we accounted for close to 16% of global trade. And at the intra-regional level, that's to say, the trade that we carry out, the three of us together, that has reached already $1.2 trillion in 2019. And what does this represent for Mexico specifically? This North American integration has been possible as a result of the foreign direct investment that Mexico has received under NAFTA. NAFTA FDI to Mexico is basically more than 50% of the total FDI that Mexico has received between 1999 and March of 2020. And as you can see here, this is there's an increasing participation of US and Canadian investment in the Mexican economy. From the US, it's 277 billion, from Canada is 41 billion. And this investment has supported Mexico's trade activity under NAFTA and with the world. In this graph, what you see is the rate of growth, the value of exports and imports that Mexico does under NAFTA with its US and Canadian partners. It shows also the rate of growth, the average annual growth rate at 7.5% growth between 1993 and 2009. So you see that trade, North American trade, Mexico's NAFTA trade has also been possible as a result of trade liberalization under NAFTA to boost an export platform that has made Mexico today one of the most important top trading partners to the US. Actually, in 2019, Mexico became the #1 trading partner to the US, followed by Canada and by China. This represents close to 15% of Mexico's participation in the US market, compared to 7% in 1993. So Mexico has really gained market share in the US as a trading partner. And also this has also been the case in the agricultural sector. The agricultural sector before 1994, it was basically completely closed down for Mexican and US products. So I think that this is also a success story that we need to bear in mind. Mexico today is also a key trading partner for the US. Mexico has today a surplus with the US, and we represent the most important trading partner, not only for the US, but also for several products where Mexico is the #1 buyer of US products. This has created a nice complementarity between US production and Mexican production, bringing more healthy food to the table of US consumers. Mexico is also a key market for 29 US states exports. When we see the breakdown of this trade relationship and how it has grown and how it has impacted at the local level, we can see that Mexico is the largest export market for 7 US states. And one of these states, without a question, is Texas. Mexico is the second largest export market for 19 US states that are colored in green, and the third largest export market for 3 US states that are colored in red. Specifically, in the case of Texas, Texas is key for the Mexico-US trade partnership. Texas trade with Mexico accounts for 34% of total trade flows between the US and Mexico. It supports close to 400,000 jobs, and exports represent $108 billion, while imports from Mexico represent $104 billion. So you can see, as Luisa del Rosal and Francisco de la Torre mentioned at the beginning of the talk, that Texas is one of the key players in making US-Mexico trade possible and offer great potential to continue to support this shared production. Mexico, the US, and Canada, as a result of NAFTA, produce together to compete globally and also in North America. In this chart, you see a number of products where we see how Mexico and the US trade in automotive products, in electronics, in oil production, in electrical products, show that we produce together. We export parts and we import final products both ways. And I want also to make a point in the case of auto production. 38% of Mexican auto exports, 38% is US content today. And with the new rules of origin, this content will definitely grow. So what this graph shows is that we are producing together, and the kind of trade that we have is intra-trade and intra-industry and intra-firm trade in North America, supported by US NAFTA and now USMCA. And in the specific case of Texas and Mexico, we also see this kind of integration taking place. Mexico-Texas trade is part of the global supply chains specialized in sectors such as electronics and the automotive sectors, as you can see in these tables, both for imports that Texas carry out from Mexico and Texas exports to Mexico. You see the amount and the share where you can make sure that what we are seeing here is an intra-industry and intra-firm trade, which is one of the most important foundations of our integration in North America. Texas is also a strategic trade and logistic hub for North America. As you can see here, the top 10 US ports are also supporting US-Mexico trade flows. Actually, 63% of total US-Mexico trade flows cross through Texas. So that tells you a lot about the nature of the relationship, the nature of the integration, and the importance that Texas is, and the Texas contribution not only to Mexico trade, but to North American integration. On this map, you see the three main trade corridors that cross Texas: the Western Corridor in El Paso, the I-35 corridor in Laredo, and the I-69 corridor in the lower Rio Grande Valley. So what we will see right now is that we will need to support, further develop the infrastructure that we have already created under NAFTA, so that under USMCA we can have more stronger and solid infrastructure to be able to support this trade. In this table, I also want to show you how Texas top metropolitan areas exports rely on Mexico. And you see these metro areas, you see how much they contribute to exports, and also you see how much these exports growth, how much they have experienced growth in since 2005. So it really tells you a lot about the dynamism that USMCA now, NAFTA before, brings to the table. And also, I think that it's important to bear in mind that as important as US and Texas investment is in Mexico, and it has supported the North American factory and North American shared production, today we also see Mexican companies investing in the US in a very important way. Mexican companies see Dallas as a strategic business ally. As you see here, there are a number of companies that have already established. 35% of Mexican investments in the US have their corporate headquarters in Dallas. Today, we know that Mexican investment in the US is close to $35 billion and growing. And also, Dallas-based companies trust Mexico as a strategic business partner. As you see here, some of the names that continue to do business with Mexico. So why choose Mexico to grow businesses in North America? One thing that we have seen in business decisions, in corporate decisions, is that when any firm sees investments or analyzes investment in North America, they always consider Mexico in their corporate decisions. And let me explain to you, and let me offer you a number of reasons why to consider Mexico in their operations. The first one has to do with the fact that Mexico is one of the most open economies in the world. We are the 7th largest exporter and the first in Latin America. Today, we have USMCA in place, which gives a strong foundation for certainty and also for a vision to the future. But Mexico also has 12 free trade agreements with 48 countries. So that makes us a country that has preferential access to 50 countries in the world, including USMCA. And it connects the Mexican economy to more than 1.3 billion consumers, which represents 60% of world's GDP. So this is one of the key reasons why investors see Mexico as an attractive place to invest and also as a country from where to address and from where to serve efficiently and competitively the North American market. Mexico also offers a solid infrastructure and logistics network. According to the World Economic Forum, Mexico ranks among the top 30% countries with best transport infrastructure. We have 172,000 kilometers of roads, where 62.4% of Mexico's total exports move. You know that, as I mentioned, Texas and Mexico have a very, very dynamic and very strong and solid relationship as it relates to transportation, road transportation, importance of all cross-border infrastructure to make possible this trade. We also have 27,000 kilometers of railway tracks that move 13% of Mexico's total exports. We have 117 ports that move close to 20% of Mexico's exports, and 76 airports. 64 are international that move 4.3% of our total exports. In terms of strategic location and competitive logistics costs, Mexico offers very low shipping costs when we see our costs from Mexico to the US compared to China to the US. Mexico has a cost of $9 per square meter compared to $140 per square meter from China to the US. So that is a very important factor when considering logistics and considering the strength of supply chains and global value chains. In terms of maritime days to selected destinations, as you see in this table, Mexico has a privileged position and a very competitive position with respect to other countries to get to US ports, but even to ports that are in Europe or in Asia. As a result of NAFTA, as a result of the investments that we have received under NAFTA, and also as a result of the network of free trade agreements that we have built, Mexico has built a very diverse and innovative industrial platform. More than 2/3 of our exports fall into high complexity sectors. Mexico ranks as the 19th most complex economy. You see here the number of sectors in which Mexico participates. And the reason why this is important to bear in mind, the complexity of the economy, is that we have the capacity to attract new sectors, new companies in developing new projects in new sectors, because we have been able to build not only the industrial infrastructure and the physical infrastructure, we also have the human resource to be able to support that kind of innovation. Now, Mexico leads today in manufacturing production in several sectors, and I will just name a few. We are the second largest world producer of vehicles and the fourth as exporter. We're the sixth largest supplier of aircraft parts to the US. We are the sixth largest exporter of information technology products and services. And we're the eighth largest exporter of medical devices worldwide, which is not minor given the pandemic today. We offer competitive and cost-effective manufacturing. With respect to natural gas for industry, our cost is $20 US for megawatt in 2019. This is a comparison with respect to other countries. You can see where Mexico is located, and also with respect to the Global Manufacturing Cost Competitiveness Index. Mexico has, in the index, Mexico its number is 86 in the index compared with other countries in the world. We also have an internet connectivity and broadband access supports the fourth industrial revolution, the Internet of Things, the digital economy. I want to say that here we have a huge potential to take advantage of USMCA provisions related to digital economy, to e-commerce, and also combined very nicely with the protections that USMCA offers in the intellectual property chapter as it relates to patent protection, trademarks, copyrights, internet, among many other provisions. Today, Mexico ranks third in mobile broadband subscriptions within OECD, only after the United States and Japan. We have a 74% mobile penetration rate. It is growing at a 17% annual growth in the past 5 years. And today we account for 92 million mobile broadband subscriptions. So here we have a huge opportunity to support the development of the new economy, the digital economy, which we also consider will open more opportunities for all the population in Mexico and in North America. To refer to the young, competitive, and skilled workforce that we have in Mexico. Mexico is a young country. Mexico has a young population. On average, our population is 27 years old. With respect to economically active population in Mexico by age, you can see here that 45% is located in the cohort between 30 and 49 years old. And with respect to graduates, it's important to bear in mind also that 17% of all graduates every year come from engineering programs. That puts us in a better position than other developing countries like India, Brazil, South America, or Indonesia, where the graduates are less with respect to the total of graduates in every year. And that is also important because that supports the kind of skilled workers that industry, but also the new economy will require. So these are one of the strengths that Mexico offers today, to build on NAFTA and also to bring USMCA to its full implementation. Now, we also have challenges, but there are important opportunities that I would like to talk about right now. Where we see opportunities, on one hand, we see that USMCA requires original equipment manufacturers in vehicles and truck production to procure and to source more from North America and to reduce its sourcing from third regions, Asia, Europe. So that is a challenge without a question, because we moved from a regional value content of 62.5% to 75%. But we see this as an important opportunity to attracting more investment into the region, into Mexico, to make sure that we can offer the kind of inputs, parts that are needed, that will be needed by the vehicle producers in order to comply with the new rules of origin. So there's an opportunity for more auto parts producers to come to the region and to offer competitive production into the region. We also see the opportunity of investing more in steel and aluminum so that we can comply with the 70% regional value content. There's also opportunity in the digital economy. The digital economy chapter of USMCA opens a whole host of areas in which the three countries can work together to develop their business projects, as it relates to the fact that there will be no taxes, no duties, no import duties at all to this activity. And in e-commerce, we also see a huge opportunity of democratizing trade, not only in terms of participation of small businesses or communities that have never participated in trade, but also to the extent that we will see that through the internet, through technology, we will be able to support business opportunities among businesses in North America that normally would never have thought of accessing the US market or the Canadian market, and vice versa. We also see a more inclusive trade to the extent that we have these provisions related to labor, environment, anti-corruption, SMEs. We know that as in 1994, when we implemented NAFTA, we had to make a lot of efforts to adjust and adapt to the new realities of NAFTA. It's without a question that we will have also to adjust to these new provisions and to these new commitments. But we also consider that in the medium and long term, this will create better businesses, a better business environment, and a more responsible and inclusive region in North America. Now, I cannot finish this presentation without referring to the actions to face COVID-19. COVID-19 was an event, a huge event that we never thought of. We never expected to have to face something like this. And the effects on the economy and the health of the three countries has been really dramatic. The COVID-19 has impacted our economic activity. It has created a shock in terms of demand, in terms of supply, and it has had a very dramatic impact in terms of our own trade flows, our investment flows. However, I also want to say that even in a very trying and challenging situation, USMCA brings the opportunity to have a speedy recovery, like we had in 1995 when we faced in Mexico the peso crisis. NAFTA helped Mexico to turn over faster and to be able to recover faster. We think that we will be able to bring NAFTA, North American integration, back on track once we are able to reopen economic activities. Why? Because USMCA offers these rules that we know we can follow, but also COVID-19 has also presented the opportunity of strengthening the global value chains, the productive integration of North America. And also we have seen these concerns regarding the resilience and the strength of the supply chain. Sectors and companies that are reconsidering the reallocation, the decoupling, or the nearshoring of their production can consider North America and all of the countries in North America as part of their nearshoring strategies, because we have USMCA. And we hope and we know that USMCA will help to maintain North American value chains operating, resilient, and strong enough to be able to help us jointly to face this pandemic together. I appreciate the opportunity of being with you today, and I'm open to any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Minister de la Mora, for your presentation. Now we can move on with the agenda and start with a Q&A session. We received dozens of questions, and due to the time we have available, it is difficult to answer all of them. Nevertheless, we will send a written response to each one of them by the same email that we received these questions. Thank you for your interest and sending the questions in advance. So the first question is related to COVID-19. How has COVID-19 affected Mexico and U.S. trade flows? Thank you, Vice Minister.
Sure. Yes, I mean, it goes without a question that COVID-19 has put a lot of pressure on our economies, jobs, and obviously in international trade. Unfortunately, as a result of the fact that we have needed to shut down economic activity to be able to deal with a health emergency, our economic activities in Mexico have declined. We see a forecast for 2020 of a reduction in terms of GDP that could go as low as 8–10%. And that has already impacted our export activity. Actually in April, our trade with the US declined by close to 48%. In May, that was the same case. And that was a result of shutting down in Mexico, the US, and Canada. However, we have seen that this reduction in the rate of activity between Mexico and the US is reducing. The last number that we have is that our exports in the auto industry, for example, only declined by 30%, and you can say only, but before that it was 90%. So we are starting to see a reopening of the economic activity. I think that it's important also to say that there are a couple of things that we need to underscore. First is that under this pandemic, we have been able to maintain a dialogue, to maintain constant communication, and all of the decisions that we have made regarding the border have been commonly agreed. Mexico and the US decided to close the border for non-essential activities. However, we have not closed the border for trade, agricultural trade, food, impeded and flowing. But evidently, we have seen challenges posed for the operation of regional value chains. And in this respect, Mexico, the US, and Canada have worked together to define essential sectors. We obviously went through different periods of time, different waves in which we were facing the pandemic. That has happened also within countries, in Canada, in the US, and Mexico. Not all the country has been affected the same way. So we have been able to show regional responses and sectoral responses. At the end of the day, we need to find a balance between finding the appropriate measures to maintain the health of our people, and at the same time find the proper measures to have a healthy economy. And that for Mexico, I think it's important to bear in mind that the pandemic has shown how integrated we are and how important it is to work together to maintain those value chains in place, and also to adjust the decisions that we will be making throughout the process. And that will be supported by the work that we are already doing with our counterparts in the US and in Canada, USTR, Department of Commerce, state level. We have worked very closely with the state governors here in Mexico, the local governments, as they relate to their counterparts at the state level also in the US. So I think that communication, collaboration, cooperation under USMCA is possible and is taking place to make sure that this pandemic affects us in the least possible way. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Minister de la Mora. In order to make more interactive this Q&A session, I would like to ask Consul Francisco de la Torre to address the next question. Paco, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. The next question may be titled "Elephant in the Room," and it's the following. Several people sent this question, not only one. How will the current China-U.S. relationship affect trade under the new USMCA? Gracias, Subsecretaria.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Francisco. China for international trade. Today, China is the third largest trading partner to the US. It's our second largest trading partner. It may be the case that after this pandemic and after some of the nearshoring, restructuring of supply chains, some of the value chains that we have developed with China may be adjusted. However, I also want to mention that USMCA support to strengthen the regional value chain in North America. In this respect, specifically in the automotive sector, which accounts for around 30-35% of total trade between Mexico and the US, the new origin regime will require that more investments come into North America, and Mexico has a key role to play. So what we may be able to see at the end of the day is that many of the products, inputs, imports that we are already making from China will have to reallocate to North America. That doesn't mean to say that we will decouple and that we will completely detach from our trade with China. China is a very important player in international trade, but we may be able to see some parts of the industry that will decide to move their production to North America. Second point has to do with the fact that USMCA offers very important protections for intellectual property. Mexico recently passed its new innovation and industrial property protection law that reflects all of the commitments that we made under USMCA and under the CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. That legal framework will also be a key decision point for investors in North America, because it goes without a question that the new economy requires the best protection for innovation, creation, research and development, and that is something that North America offers, Mexico, the US, and Canada. So we also think that those kinds of provisions will encourage more investment in North America as opposed to other regions, and China has been questioned for its protection of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Subsecretaria.
Yes, please. Now I would like to ask Luisa del Rosal to help us to address the next question. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Gerardo. Subsecretaria, this ties in beautifully with what you were just saying about technology, innovation, opportunity. And so one of the questions, and I think something is very important, and one of the updates in terms of digital trade and data is, what do you see as the benefit of this free flow of data and what it can do towards innovation and new technology? And just, I'm excited to hear that you talked about that. And I know that's a question that most folks have. What opportunities are there?
Thank you, Luisa. Yes, I think that there's a very important set of rules that will allow Mexico and also North America to boost the digital economy at Industrial Revolution 4.0. The free flow of data will boost the transformation of the economy towards the fourth industrial revolution, more so after the changes in consumer behavior and industry processes accelerated by this pandemic. The fact that we in USMCA agreed not to request or require that servers are in the same, the consumer, the final consumer, really opens a very important area of opportunities for businesses. I think that supply chains will be one of the most benefited from these provisions. Just-in-time supply chain depends on real-time data to be able to optimize inventories and logistics. Also, a growing number of industries rely on the flow and sharing of information to operate, such as agriculture, software, entertainment, design, biotech, medical services, pharmaceuticals, cloud services, 3D printing. I mean, you name it, it's there. So the free flow of data is a fundamental principle also for that development of the Internet of Things, where products and services are interconnected through the cloud to satisfy the demands of consumers, producers, institutions. And I also think that these provisions will set better for the sharing, the collaborative, and the on-demand economies. In particular, for industries like e-learning and software, free flow of data will definitely increase the potential for developing these industries in the region. So it's those provisions, I really invite people to look into them to understand the scope and the huge potential that it brings for the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Undersecretary de la Mora. We have time for one final question, which is, what are the main challenges that the auto industry is facing regarding the new rules of origin? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Gerardo. The auto industry is probably the center and at the same time example of North American integration. And I think it's also the best case to show how NAFTA was able to provide the framework for share production in North America, but also for increased competitiveness in North America. USMCA changed dramatically the way in which companies have with provisions that request that they produce in North America to be able to access the North American market under preferential conditions. And this was also the promise by President Trump, to the extent that he wanted to rebalance trade in the US in the automotive sector, bring jobs back to the US, and also reduce the huge deficit that the US has with Mexico. However, I also want to say that many of the provisions that we see today in USMCA, even though they intend to rebalance the whole industry, I think that at the end of the day, what it will do is to bring investments back to the region, as opposed to procuring from basically one of the most important suppliers in terms of auto parts, bring them back to the region. That will require investments from companies. That would also require investments from tier 1, 2, and 3 suppliers of the auto industry. But I think that it will also require that governments also do the kind of investments that we need to do to make sure that companies remain competitive vis-a-vis the rest of the world and within North America. We have a regional value content of 75%, moving from 62.5%. We have a new concept, which is the labor value content. Companies have decided to increase their wages in Mexico to make sure that they can comply with a $16 an hour. 40% of the components have to come from regions that pay $16 an hour. So companies in Mexico are decided to raise the wages. And that tells you a lot about Mexican skilled labor force and Mexico's participation in North America. And we also have a number of products, like, for example, the steel industry that needs to, where companies will need to procure steel that have 70% regional value content. And I think that that also opens opportunities for attracting foreign investment. So we will see of North American automotive production. And I think that hopefully that will strengthen the supply chain, and it will open great opportunities for Mexico, because Mexico is a very important and very competitive supplier of auto parts production. It will take an effort, yes. It will take investments, yes. But at the end of the day, I think that it will be very positive for North American production in the auto sector. Thank you.
Thank you again, Vice Minister de la Mora, for your presentation. Thank you also to Consul Francisco de la Torre and Luisa del Rosal for organizing this virtual meeting. We want to thank you all for your participation, and we hope this event has been productive and useful for you to take advantage of the benefits of the USMCA and do business with Mexico. If you have any further question or request, please contact us. We will be happy to assist you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Gerardo. It's been a pleasure. Bye.
Ciao.
And congratulations to Dallas for its North America vision.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye.